Okay, as he said, I'm Ashley Gordon of Sheridan, Vice President of Digital Print Solutions. So there might be a slight bias of the paper questions on inkjet, but we'll see. And we are joined for our perennial paper panel, because we cannot do this without paper. We can't do what we do without paper, and we can't do our annual meeting without paper. But we have some slightly different voices from what we have heard from in the past. So I'm going to let these folks introduce themselves, say the company they're from, and just a teeny bit about what that company is, because it might also be new for some of us. So Charlie, how about you get us started?
Okay. I am Charlie DelVeccio, and stop, Sean. I represent White Birch Paper. We produce newsprint. We produce high brightness groundwood specialty grades, primarily for book printing, but also for commercial printing. And we are expanding in linerboard, brown paper, 100% recycled kraft.
Jennifer?
Yeah, sure. So, hello, I'm Jennifer Wilkerson, and I am General Manager at Navigator Company. We are a fully integrated manufacturer of uncoated free sheet, pulp, tissue, and energy. And we have about 1.6 million tons of capacity in uncoated printing papers, as well as about the same in pulp. We've been in the U.S. for about 25 years, selling into a variety of end-use segments. And over the past 5 years or so, we've grown a bit more on the web paper side of the business and with some inkjet treated papers, and with a new grade specifically to the book market. So we are new to BMI this year, and it's good to be here.
Great, thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Kevin Riordan, and I've got 26 years of experience in this world of paper, which actually makes me quite inexperienced versus some of my colleagues out there. My journey started with International Paper back in the day, and I've never left. But they've gotten rid of me a few times through sales and divestitures and whatnot. Today, I'm with Billerud. We're a Swedish-based packaging company with U.S.-based paper mills. And today, my responsibility is to lead the publication sales effort for the U.S.-based production. And we do that into primarily magazines, catalogs, book, direct mail. And books are a really important part of our world. We've introduced several new products, and when you're operating at rates that are well below where you'd like to be, every market's important, especially one that's, flat to growing. So appreciate books, appreciate all of you and the dedication to attending this conference and learning from each other.
Yeah, after the heady days of COVID, post-COVID, everybody in the world needs a printed book. Flat is the new up. Right? We're all just happy if we can maintain. Mm-hmm. All right. So one more quick question about your companies before we get into more of the meat. In our conversations where we were preparing for this, and particularly in light of where the market is now with a lot of consolidation and changes over the last few years, I think it would be helpful if we understand the ownership structure so that when you get the answers from these folks, you understand the perspective from which they are providing those answers. So do you mind, Kevin, if you'll start us, and then Charlie, we'll let Jennifer bring up the rear. Tell us how your company is configured.
Sure. So we're a subsidiary of Billerud, which is, that Swedish packaging company traded on the Swedish packaging or Swedish exchange. And our assets here primarily ship product into the U.S. And we're publicly held in Sweden. And our two mills are located up in the UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So great wood basket. And we have four primary business segments here in the U.S. Our biggest is graphical paper. That's what I'm charged with. We also produce more pulp than we make, so we sell that. Or we produce more pulp than we use, so we sell the excess pulp out into the marketplace. We have an entire paper machine dedicated to label paper, and we have three graphical paper machines that, again, we just ship into the U.S. in those graphical segments.
Okay. And Charlie, what's the ownership configuration and management for you?
White Birch Paper, get this way. White Birch Paper is privately held, the principal ownership being the Brandt family and Black Diamond Partners, which is a private equity group. We operate 3 mills in Canada. We produced the papers I mentioned earlier. Interesting history. It was originally started by McLaren Paper making newsprint way back when. At one point, Daishawa, a Japanese company, owned it, making directory. The most interesting part of it is the Enron team owned it as a hedge against newsprint pricing when they thought that would be a really good idea. And then the Brandt family bought it from them. Bankruptcy in 2010, they brought it out as White Birch Paper, and that's what we've been doing ever since. Again, same product lines.
Jennifer?
Yeah, Navigator is a publicly traded company. As I mentioned, we're European. We have two paper mills with 5 paper machines in Portugal, and it's publicly traded, but about over 70% of the ownership is in a family. And so the decisions are really kind of, we have that quarterly grind to make decisions, but also we have this much longer term kind of legacy family. It's a generational thing. So I think that really plays into how decisions are made within the organization on all levels.
Okay, so that's a great segue into where we go next. So Jennifer, if you take it first, and then we'll leave Charlie and Kevin. So you have a balance of quarterly pressures, but you also have ownership that is invested and legacy, if you will. So they have a long-term vision in a possibly short-term environment. How do you decide, because you all three mentioned that there's book paper, but there are other papers. You are not exclusively producing book paper. How do you determine what you're producing for a book market? How do you make those changes? What are the pressures? And I would say that because, so we have to all make investments. We have to all make choices. Certainly there is a level of concern about the consolidation of the market. But as we make our investment choices as printers and suppliers, it really helps us to know where you're going and how you're thinking. As you will all already know, I'm a big believer in the why. Why are we doing this? Why is that person? Why is that company? Why are they making those choices? Not just to make my life difficult, but there's probably something behind it. So as you choose to develop your book business, what are the factors that impact those decisions?
So there's a lot that could be said around that. I would say that the kind of speaking to the ownership structure, when you have a long-term view, I think it allows the company to focus on things like quality and where we go in a much longer-term spectrum. So you're looking at the market dynamics, but also having an integrated platform. So you have multiple businesses within that structure. I think it allows for flexibility for decision making and a focus on basically maximizing the long term. So we can focus on quality, we can focus on making continued investments in the assets, which is really important. It allows us to do product development and be seeing where there are opportunities for new businesses, which has been a big part of what we've done in the U.S. in particular over the past couple of years. And so I just think it's positions us for the future and all of the different dynamics that are constantly coming our way. I mean, this year has been an incredible example with tariffs and all of the things that have taken place that are so unexpected and all of the uncertainty. Having that kind of financial stability and the variety of different businesses that you can use when making those complex decisions, I think helps.
Charlie, when y'all are deciding, this line or that grade, but what goes into it?
Well, that's one of the benefits, as I see it, of working for a privately held company. Decisions get made quickly. There's not a chain of, and I mean this with no disrespect to accountants, but there's not a change of accountants who then look at every decision. How can we make money? Does it make money? Does it make enough money? Does it clear a threshold? We have a very short decision chain that allows us to make changes quickly. The main business that the company started out on is newsprint. Newsprint, as we all know, is not a strong business at the moment. Certainly month over month, year over year, it's in decline. And as we look at the book papers, we are able to move the book papers in and out of that system at a very rapid pace. Newspapers tend to keep inventory. So for us to say, hey, I've got a quick turn that needs paper in 2 weeks, I can move newsprint orders around to different mills because it doesn't really matter. Whereas the book papers, we have to be consistent in brightness, we have to be consistent in shade, we have to have consistent basis weight and caliper specifications, and that typically focuses on 1 or 2 machines that we make paper on. So the decision process that goes into how we do those things, how we move orders around and take care of our customers, very, very truncated process versus what it might be in a larger company where you've got many more hands and many more interests at play in the same business.
Kevin?
You know, in my experience with just this one company, we've had lots of different ownerships. You know, we've been owned by a big U.S. conglomerate in IP. We've been owned by multiple different PE firms, and now being owned by a strategic buyer. It's just been interesting to see the different strategies that these owners take. And we were up for, sale. We were in play at Verso back in 2022. And so we thought we were going to go back to PE. We went to a strategic buyer, and it's been interesting to see the difference and the longer term view that you can take versus somebody who's playing the short game, which, also has some advantages to shareholders. But what we've been able to do is to reinvest into the business because they're taking the long game. When we were in a position to make cash for the first time after COVID, we had that scarcity of paper, and it allowed mills to do 2 things I've never done in my career, raise the price and run full consistently. And so we saw the industry do that, and that capital we made is going back into the business, because if you do a 5-year CAGR of our markets, it's just a math problem. They're declining, different segments, different rates. We all have our own view of what's going to happen in different customer and product mixes, but it's declining. And so you need to be realistic about that. And you need to really take a deep dive into what are your capabilities. How broad can I go into the book segment and still, produce that sustainably and monthly so that you can provide service? Or do you, reinvest that cash into making something that you don't even make today, but might require an $80 million investment? So we are looking at our capital and making decisions how to invest that. And I think it's been a hybrid. We're investing in the present so we can better service you. And then we're able to invest in the future so that we can service you in 10 years, despite the fact that graphic paper is in this steady decline.
Okay, so we've heard about your organizational structures, how those have given you opportunities. We've talked a little bit about how each one of you make decisions. Switching gears slightly, looking at the market itself, not necessarily your individual company approaches, but the market itself, and in light of all the changes that we've gone through, think of this as a fair, you'll get another long answer in a minute, but think of this as a short answer. Charlie, give me one really significant challenge in servicing the book business and making book paper. Not to put you on the spot.
No, it's a list. I think particularly now where inventories are at such a low level at the printer plant, at the publisher level, I think the quick turns challenge us quite a bit. I mean, we're getting requests for paper by Friday. Can we do it? And books drop in, and we've been successful for the most part in doing so, but it is a challenge to the mill team. It's a challenge to the customer service team, and logistically getting paper from point A to point B quickly is another challenge, and we can talk about tariffs and what that did to that at another time. But I think that covers it.
Okay.
Yeah, and mine would be similar and slightly, probably even a little bit more challenging with us being a European company. So all of our manufacturing being overseas, we have to really find book opportunities that fit, meaning there are consistent roll sizes and there's some predictability, and or a multiple sourcing strategy that would allow us to have inventory in the United States and kind of have a flowing pipeline so that we can mitigate the long lead time coming from Europe and we can have paper here in the US. But it really takes a little bit of analysis and building a plan to support the book market. And it doesn't work in every single piece of business. It's going to work very well in many, but not in all.
You got one?
This is me? Okay. As we've gone from like 16 paper mills to 2, we kind of hit bedrock, and what's left are these really low-cost, efficient assets that want to run full. The problem is that was set up to service the industry in 2006. And in 2025, the industry is moving towards shorter lead time, smaller runs, more niche opportunities, and so those things don't always jibe well together, and we've got to figure out a way to make it jibe.
Okay, let's think about grades and the types of paper that you're making. Some of the projects that we've, over the last few years, particularly in light of supply chain challenges and disruptions, we've talked to publishers about, God forbid you say standardization, we don't say that word, but we'll say rationalization. Can we rationalize the number of papers that publishers use? Can we rationalize trim sizes and roll sizes? And can we somehow make this just less chaotic so that we are sustainable from an economic standpoint, and you guys want to stay in the business, and so that we publishers, our customers, and then suppliers together create an environment where you see a future. So, what are your thoughts on the future of different grades? Are we consolidating down to a universal paper, or how are you looking at offset versus digital? Why don't we start here and go down? What are y'all thinking about where paper's going and what you will be producing?
I think it's going to be different by market segment. You might get 3 very different answers up here. I would say that if you ask our engineers, right, we hire numerous process engineers, and they want to improve the process and get more tons out the door. And we're not operating in an environment where that can be the goal. So we focus more on the marketing side. What products are needed by you guys? What products can we make efficiently? And then challenge the engineers to get really good at starting and stopping the machine, and get really good at transitioning from one grade of paper to another grade of paper, and put all that effort on process into doing that. So, we want to be in a position where we can do that effectively and serve you as you take the industry. We can't drive where you all go. We want you to figure out how you can be successful, and then we want to help you do that at the largest scale we can.
Jennifer, what are you seeing? Paper types, paper grades?
Yeah,
where's the industry?
I would say almost not to your point, are we moving toward a standardized grade? I think on the uncoated free sheet side, we're seeing more of, there's been a lot of running on a standard offset, but I think where we really see growth is in treated inkjet papers. And so that is growing, I would say, faster than the more of a commodity type of offset paper. And I think, to your point, the having flexibility it's hard to be flexible with these huge paper machines, but it's a requirement, as in all of the different market segments. It's a requirement to be figuring out how we can be efficient and profitable while making all of the different grades that are needed. But I'd say it's been fairly standard in uncoated free sheet, where you have the market that's buying the traditional offset, and then a lot of growth in inkjet treated, where really the numbers just work out for a lot of printers. The drying time, the reduced ink consumption, and the quality that they can achieve with treated inkjet is just makes that equation work for them.
One of the challenges of being in this business for a long time is you remember when. And there's enough old people in this room, or older people, who remember when there was a 1 million book print run, when we would ship 500 tons at a pop. At a mill, the mill team, they want to run one grade, one shade, one basis weight all day long, all night long. That's not the business anymore. So the challenge for all of us, back in the day, I served a mill that on the one machine we made book papers on, we were doing 8 or 10 grade changes a day. By grade, I mean brightness, basis weight, caliper changes. That today would kill a mill. But on the printer side, the SKUs that you all use have consolidated as well by necessity. Still, we are making 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, 3.7, 4.0. Do we need to? The publishers say, yes, we should have to have that grade for our particular book. We want it to look a certain way. But the consolidation of SKUs, I think, is something, or SKUs, is something that I think we all need to focus on. As we look forward in this business, it costs money to change a grade. Typically, when we change from one brightness to another, it's 20 tons of paper that goes into the sewer. That's a cost. And the thing about this business, as we all know, there's nothing free. Everything you do, every change you make, every adjustment that's made costs money. And that impacts our ability to do different things, et cetera. So those are the challenges I think we all face as the business changes around us with smaller runs and quicker turns.
Okay, I'm throwing him a curve here. So based on that, a lot of what we're here for and what we try to accomplish are coming up with, when we go out of this room, are we going to do something differently from how we did it when we walked in? Are there solutions that we can come to as a group? And so if we did want to encourage publishers to rationalize some of the SKUs, do you have an argument that you could give to a room of suppliers who then go back and talk to publishers? Is there language? Is there a particular position? Is there something that we could take back to our publisher customers that would help them understand this far up the food chain? If you were to make this tweak, and a lot of times we're talking about a tweak, not some wholesale change. Give us some language, give us some arguments that we can take back to help our customers see the benefits.
Me?
If you got one.
Well, I think, look, the big issue for all of us today, inventory. No one wants to carry too much. And if your inventory is segregated into 15 different SKUs, could there be 5? Could there be 10? Larger inventories of those 5 or 10. That makes sense to everybody. And these are arguments or discussions we have pretty regularly with folks. But as we all know, publishers have their way of doing things. And each editor has a way of looking at their particular books and how they want them to look. There are compelling arguments for doing all the stuff we're talking about. And it's not something that hasn't been brought up before, but it's a challenge to us to say it the right way, to the printers to encourage as we do, and then to get to the publisher to finally say, yeah, I got to do that. They've done a good job to a point, but certainly inventory costs are something that we all understand, particularly now. When we had 2% interest rates, inventory was one thing. At 6.5%, 7% now, inventory is another game. And everybody seems to speak that language at some point, and I think that's where we have to go, is encouraging people to look at that a little differently.
I would add, and along that same line of thinking, Charlie, inventory is a major problem, and nobody wants to carry it. But what they really don't want to carry is speculative inventory. You don't want to hold inventory for your customers they're not going to use. That's even more expensive than the carrying costs, and we're in a similar spot. And the lack of standardization in the industry prevents there being more just piles of inventory that can plug and play across a variety of customers and printers. That's not necessarily what you all want, because standardization removes switching barriers too, and customization and flexibility for your customers. I think, in a loose paper market, we can make all of us look really great. We can service a lot of your problems or last minute shortages when the market's loose. Our challenge is going to be when the quickness of a tightening market comes. It's not going to come from demand growth. It's going to come from capacity reductions. And when it happens, it's not going to be gradual. It'll be quick. And if you're stuck in that situation with no inventory and no plan, and you haven't forecasted with your partners, that's where there's significant costs in that, obviously, running out of product. So I would the more we can collaborate, all legs of the stool to share what's coming, even 70%, knowing 70% of what someone's going to need is infinitely better than not knowing if it's, 10% or 150. So I think, forecasting, collaboration, and just tightness with your suppliers is critical.
What do you think, Jennifer? Advice?
Yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot more to add. I think that both of those things, they link together, and by managing inventory or having fewer SKUs that can be inventoried, you also, the publishers can also expand the number of suppliers that they're able to consider. And that goes back to what I said about, European suppliers or people that are coming from further away, even if it's not Europe. It just allows for more of a supply base, which equals security down the road. And that speaks volumes to, publishers or any customers that have that long-term view that we were talking about.
So we heard lowering inventory costs and carrying inventory, which will open up capital for other things. Risk mitigation, a little bit of what you were saying sounded a bit like risk mitigation to me. Forecasting and collaboration, and then allowing yourselves freedom to find a vendor who's available to you, and that's also in that risk mitigation category. Okay, so in terms of risk mitigation, a lot of that, who even knew risk mitigation before COVID? Was that even a phrase that any of us ever thought about? But now it's fundamental to our business. So we heard this morning about labor constraints, which was hardly news to the people in this room. You all come from different markets. How does labor figure into your efficiency and productivity? Is it a problem for you? And if it is a problem, how are you addressing it? And I'm going to let Jennifer go first.
Yeah, I can start. I think like everyone in this room, labor is always a concern. And we take a pretty proactive approach to it through a really ongoing hiring of younger talent with technology expertise and AI, because it has to be said. We can't let the panel go without using that term. But I think what's really unique and what I value at Navigator is it's paired with a mentorship program as well. So, it's important to bring in young talent, but it's equally as important to make sure that we don't lose all of the knowledge that we have in this industry through retirement. And so I think that is just a really important and effective approach that Navigator has taken to make sure that we're keeping that knowledge and transferring it to the next generation, or so to speak.
How about you? Labor issues?
We got a couple challenges. One is our mills are located in the UP, and it's a beautiful place for 6 months of the year, but it's tough to get people to go up there who aren't from the area. It's tough to tell your spouse that, they got to drive an hour to go to a Target. And so we've had to kind of change how we recruit people to those facilities and what we're offering, the benefits package. And it's not all about pay. Young people are very different in what they're looking for. So we try to be in tune with that. The second problem we have is that in 4 years, 50% of our staff, not the people who work at the mill, but the admin people, the overhead like me, in just a few years, over half the company is going to be over 65. And so there's just a tremendous effort to, bring in new people, retain the young people you do bring in. And I don't think we're alone in that. A lot of our admin people came from the mill. Our Quinnesec mill started in 1990, 35 years ago. Well, those people are, coming of age now, and they've infiltrated, the management ranks. So it's sort of all happening at once. The good news is it's not a problem you don't see coming. Right? It's a steady progression. So I think we're dealing with it, but those are our two biggest challenges.
What you got, Charlie?
Well, we're in a little different situation at two of our three mills. They're located in major metropolitan areas, Ottawa and right in Quebec City. So we have access to a fairly large population of people who can work at the mills if they choose to. And that's the big question now. I mean, young people in particular, in a mill environment, they could stay home and work from their bedroom or their dining room table and do very, very well. AI and everything else that gets thrown into that. So we have a challenge of how do you attract a young person to come into a mill which is loud, which is not exactly the greatest place in the world in terms of injury threats. Not that we have issues there, but it's always a thought. Again, we have an advantage in that we have a large base, but as we heard earlier this morning, some of the technical directions that kids can go in today, we have an outreach program in the communities we're in to bring kids who may or may not be thinking about a paper mill career and what they could do, even engineers, to bring them into the mills and get them acclimated and accustomed to what it might be. We pay very well. We have great benefits. But as we have now, we have one mill that was shut down the beginning of July and is still down. Probably will not come up until the new year. The people at that mill, the hourly staff, they're out. And they're now today probably looking for other jobs. And if we're lucky, we'll get 50%, 60% of those folks back when the mill does indeed start back up. So it's a challenge. But that's the business. And there are always choices. Again, we have an advantage. The UP is one challenge. We don't have that, but there are other things. We have other businesses that you can make a very good living at and not go into a paper mill with your earmuffs on and your hard hat and your steel-toed shoes every day. And to some people, that's a real draw.
So it's not uncommon that we all know we have an aging workforce. We all want to retire one day, most of us. I think there are a couple of people in the room who swear that's never going to happen, and they'll be 102 and still doing this. I'm not one of those people. So what is it that, so what I heard was, with our aging workforce, what we don't want is a complete exodus of institutional knowledge. So mentorships and making sure that you can transfer that knowledge to the younger generation should you get them in. And you go after that younger generation through outreach programs, educational partnerships, bringing them into the plant to see what it is. And one thing I think I heard that's slightly different from sometimes, this came up one year before and everybody went, wow, you're hiring a family. It's kind of like when you get married, you're not marrying your spouse, you're marrying your spouse's family. In some cases, you're not hiring just that person, you're hiring that person and whoever that person brings with them, and acknowledging that there's childcare, there's a Target that's an hour away, like just being cognizant of what that individual employee may have to deal with in terms of their overall, their family structure. Okay, so helpful things. What is the role of technology and how quickly technology is changing, particularly on the print space? We got some OEMs in the room, and technology is getting faster, it's getting more automated. On the production side of the business, does the changing technology for your customers impact you, or is there changing technology in your own world that's a bigger impact? How has the evolution of how we make what we make changed your business or changed your decision trajectory?
The investments you're making are changing what we have to do. The inkjet press, I don't know how many more offset presses are going to be installed. It's all inkjet, and our systems are not set up initially to service that market well. The profile of a roll that goes on an offset press is very forgiving. Profile is important, but only to a degree. And when you're selling an inkjet product, it's extremely important. And so we have to segregate those rolls. And so it's added a step to our process. It's added time to our timeline to get you paper. But at the end of the day, it makes it, perform better. Your investments in technology have led to a lot of more narrow rolls, right? We were selling rotogravure rolls, 120 inches. we were, our average roll size was probably in the high 50s. As these inkjet installations come in, the average narrow rolls, maybe it's 22 inch, are a much bigger percentage of our makeup today than they were, just 3 years ago. And the challenge is that our old equipment set up with 7, 8, 9 slitters. So you have a 287 inch decal and you get to cut that into pieces. And when you had lots of wide sizes, that was pretty easy. You didn't even need all your slitters. Oftentimes now you don't have enough slitters. You can't cut enough 22 inch rolls with the equipment you have. And so, in addition to the profile, so technology changes don't always mean more efficiencies for us, but we have to adapt because we have to follow, demand. AI, I hope it's a long time before it replaces us, but what it's doing right now, because we're investing in AI in a big way. And at first you're like, oh, what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to get rid of people? It's shocking. This whole AI, it's not about ChatGPT. It's about how businesses can run more efficiently, safer, faster, better quality. And I think that's where we're investing technology on our end. And safety is it's a scary place, a paper mill. If you haven't been to a paper mill, we'd love to have you. Everybody loves having their customers come visit their mills, but they're a scary, dangerous place, and we have injuries all the time. It's no meeting starts without an update on safety, and we do think technology is going to help us with safety and quality performance on machine.
Okay.
I would agree with the comment about a lot of almost, this bottleneck that's being created relative to the smaller roll sizes and more rewinding capacity. I think that's a challenge for most mills. I think the technology evolution also that we see out in the print world of lowering basis weight is also something that we're always being challenged with. Creating lower basis weight papers obviously has implications from a cost perspective, and it just requires additional technology that we're always evolving and having to address. And then at the mills, from a mill technology perspective, we too, like everyone says, are investing in AI. And I think where you see it, any kind of technology, whether it's AI or not, I think it's been hugely beneficial, especially relative to waste minimization, chemical preparation, recipes, all of those things, and you're seeking to drive cost and efficiency and technology, and AI has really been. It's not new, It's we talk about it a lot more now, but it's not like a revolution. I think it's more of kind of this evolution that is picking up speed, but it's been in the works for some time at this point.
Again, the perspective of age and time in industry. Those of us who've been around a while remember when the whole concept of digital print was first brought to the forefront and everybody lost their minds. This is going to change everything. How can I do this? The surface has to be treated. At one point, there was special sauce, if you didn't have a coater, that went into the formulation of the product. As we've evolved over time, the printers, digital print OEMs, and the printers themselves have made adjustments, and the mills have made adjustments. Kevin mentioned it earlier. Some of the parameters for how you build a roll for inkjet is very different than how you build a roll for offset. In particular, the width variation is very unforgiving in a digital process versus an offset process because so much more of that print surface is used. So the mills have had to adjust, sometimes kicking and screaming, to their tolerances on the width of the roll. The other thing that comes up in the digital print world is small rolls that Kevin touched on. One of the issues there is 17-inch, 18-inch, 20-inch roll even. They're very heavy products, and a 17-inch roll does not balance well when things are moving. And the danger, the safety issue there, we wind up having to double pack anything under a 20-inch roll, even sometimes a 20, depending upon where it's going, which makes a bigger package, which is more weight, and we have to be able to deal with that. And the printer who receives this, not always in a position to handle a double roll unless they're well aware of how to do that. So that's a challenge as well. But that's one of the things we really focus on. Kevin mentioned safety. You put a 17-inch roll on a conveyor belt and it starts moving, bad things can happen really quickly. And we don't think about it, but a 35-pound, 50-inch OD, 17-inch roll weighs around 900 pounds. That's going to hurt if it falls. That's going to be a challenge on a truck if it's shipped by itself. So we have to double pack them. Something we've adjusted to, the digital print thing, as I mentioned, the parameters primarily on width, and then working together with the OEMs. I don't know that anybody in the groundwood business right now is adding any extra stuff to make it run better on a digital press. We had in the past, but we now know the publishers want to see their digital books look exactly like their offset books.
Yep.
And that means you got to use the same paper. That's how uncoated groundwood, which was just a scary, scary thought to a lot of digital print people initially, has kind of developed and grown into the position it is in the digital print world because the publishers want it to look the same. So we've adjusted, the OEMs have adjusted, and the printers have adjusted.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. So everybody start mulling where it is you want to go. We could have spent the entire day on EUDR if we really all wanted to be miserable. So what I would say is, so that we, kind of like AI, we can't have a paper panel without an EUDR question. Do you think you could limit yourself to like one point about whether it's, yeah, we're ready, we're moving on, we did it, or this is really what we need from our customers, and we're going to work on this together? Or could you give us just like a nugget about EUDR, and not that it's all the end of the world and it was a really none of the commentary.
Okay.
Just
no opinions about it.
Nope. Just little nugget that would make it helpful for everybody in the room.
But don't tell you how bad of legislation.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah, not that one. And then we got one more.
I'll start. So as a European producer, we've been involved in understanding and throughout the legislation as it was developed. And so we are prepared for EUDR. And the important thing is all of our customers also need to prepare. So that's, our preparedness is good, but, it has to extend down. And so we're working with customers, relative to education, transparency, collaboration, and trying to support this challenging transition. Want to go?
I'll go. So much could be said.
Right.
We're ready to go. It's been an interesting challenge for us, and I know others. One of the disappointments we had is we were ready to go a year ago, and then all dressed up and nowhere to go. The party was over. We had another year. We thought that was going to happen this year. I think the one commentary I'd make on the EUDR prep, many of the mills are ready to go. The challenge we face in many cases is many of the printers and the publishers have engaged with third parties that, in my humble opinion, do nothing but support themselves in this thing. So it's complicated things. It's clouded the discussion. Understood, there's a lot of data and detail that many of the printers and publishers don't have the access to or the people to go do it because, again, we're all thin. But the third-party injection into this, I don't think has helped as much as some people think it has.
Julie, when she was speaking on the government affairs, said that when she was a staff member, that person she was working for said, if it's important to my constituents, it's important to me. So this has been important to you guys, so it's important to all of us. And we have spent a lot of time and money and resources getting ready. We are ready. If it goes through, we'll take your orders. We'll have a Q&A coming out later this week. But we have no idea how this is going to play out. So we're trying to do our best to keep you out of trouble and keep our machines full. And I think it's every call I've been on, it's someone drew the short straw to have to talk about it. So stay tuned.
Okay, my last question, then it's all of you. So let's start with Jennifer this time, and then we'll do you, Kevin, and then Charlie, you can wrap us up on this. So this is the ubiquitous crystal ball question. Where are we going? We have to always end this. But I would ask it in a slightly different way. Instead of just, and you don't have to tell us the whole picture of where we're going, but in my 30-ish years of experience in this business, I see conditions that are different from where they have been in the past. And I can see publisher behavior changing, not just because I want it to change, but because I see conditions that are different from what they've been in the past. So this is a logical move for them. If you were to say something that's about to change or a trajectory that's going to stay the same, or where you see us in the next few years, can you also tie that to the market condition that makes you think that? You follow the question? Do you need me to give you an example to think?
Do you want to give an example? No.
I mean, I can, but if that sparks, they didn't get this in advance.
Yeah.
You got it?
So, I mean, I guess I'll say, I think one of the things that I see in the outlook, a trajectory that will continue is in the uncoated free sheet space, again, that we will see continued growth of inkjet treated paper. And I think there's a quality demand to the marketplace that is driving that, as well as technology improvements, both from a print perspective and a paper manufacturing perspective. So I guess those would be those drivers that you're looking for underlying that piece of the outlook. From a paper perspective, I think that we're going to see, again, each paper segment is different, but from an uncoated free sheet perspective, I think you're going to see a tightening of the market early in 2026. There's been incredible amount of capacity taken out of the marketplace over the past couple of years, and a lot of the dynamics that have impacted 2025 relative to tariffs and inventory that was built prior to some of those closures, as well as, upcoming closures that we see on the horizon. I think you're going to start to see a lot of the inventory that's currently been in the system. It's kind of shielded us from some of the capacity dynamics. And so I anticipate that 2026 could look quite a bit different than what we've had over the past year or so. And then tariffs also play into that relative to supply, upcoming supply constraints, as certain players just aren't able to continue supplying the U.S. market. So I think that's going to be a really big element from our vantage point facing the next year.
Kevin?
I guess I'm just humble enough to know that when I hear the speaker earlier again talking about what's going to unfold, politically, I think she said that there's likely going to be a change in the economic world order. So how that impacts our industry is above my pay grade. But what I do know is that all the changes that we're seeing are going to have a big impact on trade flows. Those trade flows are going to impact, which markets thrive and which ones starve. And we know that the core markets in the graphic space are going to decline. They're going to change a little bit. There'll be a flavor that's, more attractive or less attractive. But I think we know that. And so you're going to see mills, try to, either step on the gas and run full, because you can't cover your fixed cost in this business at low prices unless you run full. And you're going to see mills that are able to strategically evolve while staying committed to graphic papers. And then you're going to see mills who, have a big economic bill to pay for maintenance. I mean, it is really expensive to maintain a big, massive paper machine. And it's like owning a car. You can get away for a while with doing oil changes every 6 months, or, not fixing something that is about to break. But there becomes a point where either you spend a lot of money or you shut down. And so I just think I've seen that. Again, I've shut so many paper mills that I think you're just going to see a lot of change on the capacity side, and it'll be different depending on how those trade flows, play out. So it's going to be interesting, and stay tuned.
All right. You said you've seen this over many years. You remember the old days.
I think a two-part answer, if I may. I think on the ground level, on the uncoated groundwood business publication part of that, there's going to be continued consolidation, conversion, and shutdown. It's just a fact of life. There are new players entering the market. Some older players are going to get pushed out or reduced, and that's just the law of supply, demand, and economics. Not everybody's going to be able to continue to play. That's a foregone conclusion. At a higher level, we're all rapidly approaching net zero by 2030, 2035, 2040, whatever that's going to be. And I think that is also going to winnow away some of the players as the carbon credits begin to be discounted, as some of the other games that people play to make things look good. It comes down to where are you scope 1, where are you scope 2, and most importantly, where are you scope 3? And that is going to be a separator for a lot of people in this business. And it's here, it's coming, and if we're not ready for it, it's going to hurt. We're prepared. The industry as a whole is getting there, but it's going to be a shakeout.
Thank you, Charlie. Isn't it nice? Charlie's first day in the industry, and he's on a panel for us. He's fantastic.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anybody?
The post-lunch, my asthma kick in and everybody just wants to nap.
Pete?
Oh, thank God, there's one question.
Oh, there'll be more.
We have a traditional offset web production right now. We're in the process of moving over to inkjet. Looking at this decision that we've done, part of the ROI, a significant part, was, hey, we're going to use less paper based on what it takes to start up and run an offset on these lower runs. And I'm just wondering, have you seen that amongst people that companies that have gone from the traditional roll offset, web offset into inkjet? Have you seen them decrease the amount of paper they order from you, or are they making it up in volume?
I would, without question, that's been part of the issue. Publishers, and again, those of us who have been in the business for a while, remember the 500,000, 750,000 print run. There's not many of those anymore. And part of that is the injection of the inkjet product and quicker turns on some of the offset presses for smaller volumes. I mean, there's a bunch of people in this room who know more about it than I do, but yes, I think if you look at your inkjet press, you're going to use less paper. Less waste on startup, less waste on product changes, etc. That's the game, or part of the game. Sorry, inkjet people. There's a whole lot more to it than that. But yeah, it's going to be an impactor, no question. I still love you though.
Yeah, it's hopefully more sustainable demand, but it's less demand. But because it's less waste, less inventory, and less labor, it probably makes it more sustainable. And at this point in our journey, I think we'll take sustainable demand over anything. All Craig, right. I've never heard you so quiet.
Nice try. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Everybody, let's give the panel a hand.
I'm disappointed.